Good afternoon, everybody. It's Julie Drake with Shine with Julie, and I am so excited to have See, I'm going to butcher your name, and I
That's
already
totally okay.
already practiced. It's Dr. Jaci Lawfer in the house. She's a chiropractor focused on women's health, athletes, and she is going to share her wisdom with us today. And we just learned that Jaci grew up in a small town by where we would vacation as a family in Stockton, Illinois area. So I'm very familiar with that area in northwestern Illinois. And she has always believed that the body is a fascinating tool, and that drew her to chiropractor school, where she was also part of the rugby team, which is fascinating to me. That is a very intense sport. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where she met her partner, Dr. Ben, and they opened Peoria Spine Sport. And she believes that God gave us these incredible bodies, and she is just doing her part to make sure that she helps people take care of that mind, body, spirit connection through movement. So I am so excited to hear more about that, Jaci. And tell us just a little bit more about yourself. What drew you to a part in your life where you didn't want to go to work for somebody, you want to start your own thing and impact the world a little differently?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that intro, Julie. That was awesome.
Sure.
So yeah, I graduated from chiropractic school almost exactly 2 years ago now. And Dr. Ben always wanted to open up his own business back in the Peoria area. And I don't think I was ready to be a business owner. I didn't really know exactly, how I wanted to practice. So I took an associateship in Bloomington for the first year and a half.
Okay.
I'm very thankful for that experience. So at Mitchell Family Chiropractic in Bloomington, we helped a lot of families. So a lot of pregnant moms, pediatrics, and it was great. I learned a lot. And then I was just ready to, Ben had started the business, Peoria Spine Sport, and he was doing well. And I was just ready to okay, I'm going to join you. I'm going to build up my practice there and just have a little bit more freedom on how I wanted to practice to find my niche, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I shouldn't say always, but I think in the past 5 years, I became much more interested in how our bodies fluctuate as women. Mm-hmm. And I think that impacts our physiology, our metabolism. And so that in turn is going to affect us week to week on how we tackle tasks in our lives and how we approach things from work, things in our personal lives and things like that. So it's just always been something that's fascinated me. And I like that I have the ability to kind of throw a little bit of that into my chiropractic practice.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting that you said it like that, because you're the second person this week that's talked about, the cycle of a woman's body and how to really play into scheduling tasks in your strength spots throughout the month. Yeah. So I can't wait to hear more about that, because I don't think that we give ourselves enough credit as women. We try to fit into norms that have been established long before people really focused on these types of things. And we tried to put, truly a round hole in a square peg, and we're trying to make all this fit. And you know what? We just sometimes need to do things a little bit different, and that's okay. So what are some of the challenges that you faced, as coming into this new practice? Are there, there's mostly, I haven't talked to any entrepreneur yet that hasn't had challenges. So tell me a little bit about those and what you've done to overcome that.
I think the biggest challenge personally that I felt is imposter syndrome, or something to that line, being a young professional and feeling like I still have so much more to learn, or I'm just that whole imposter syndrome. So that I've struggled with for a little bit, but it slowly just gets better and better as you kind of get your feet wet. And then having the passion for chiropractic and holistic health that I have, and trying to let other people know that that's an option for them as well, I think has been kind of the biggest struggle, just getting information out there to people in a world kind of full of maybe different views and, other systems that have been around for a long time, to convince people that you can take charge of your own health and you can be empowered. It's going to take maybe a little more time and a little more work. But that's another big challenge, I think, about being a holistic practitioner as well, is
Absolutely.
just letting people know that that option is out there.
Yeah.
And things like that. And then just the whole business end of things, Ben and myself, we're always learning new things and more efficient ways to do all the background things.
Yeah.
And I think that's just always going to be a learning process. So
remember, outsourcing is your friend when it comes.
Yes. Yeah. We're starting to finally realize that. We're like, well, maybe we'll flourish a little more if we start to outsource some of this stuff. So
yeah. It's just stuff that takes your brain power, and that's not your zone of genius, and you're supposed to go and focus on the body and let other people do. But that's a topic for another day. But I love that you did not listen to that voice inside your head, Jackie, because I think that imposter syndrome, that voice that says you're too young, you don't have enough experience, or whatever, that might be for anybody else, is the voice that keeps us small and stuck. Mm-hmm. And, it also keeps us from fulfilling our own mission in the world. And, I loved that part of your bio that you really, you believe that you have a role to play in somebody's health. And if you had listened to that imposter voice, repeating itself into your head, how many people do you help that would not get that help? You're there to serve those people. And, like you said, I think holistic practices of all kinds are getting some new attention now. Mm-hmm. I think people are open to preventative care in ways that they hadn't been before 2020. So have you found that to be the case, that people are a little bit more open to looking at alternatives to just make sure that they stay strong and healthy?
Yes. Absolutely. I think in the past couple of years, there has been more of a push. People are wanting to start to take care of themselves more, whether that's, mind, body, spirit, all of them. Mm-hmm. I think people are starting to realize that is a big thing. And some people, I think, are also getting frustrated with other methods that they've already tried. So people are searching for other ways. Yeah. And social media comes with its own pros and cons, but I think one of the biggest pros is that there is so much information that you can get about health from that. So, I'm not saying Google search all your symptoms and things like that, but you can get information from different podcasts like this and blogs and things like that. So I think that's helped a ton. It's just getting information out there.
Do you have a blog or a podcast that you
don't?
Okay.
I don't.
I didn't think so, but I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, exactly. So talk to us about, women's health and how we maybe can look at our bodies differently, things that we should be doing to keep our hormones imbalanced. I know, I'm 51, so I'm on the top end of that spectrum here, going through that lovely perimenopause time and opening my eyes, because I don't want to do things medicinally. I definitely want to follow a holistic path to get through that time. But, hormone in a woman runs from, teen up through, really the later part in life where, maybe the hormones aren't produced the same way, but it still affects us as women. So I'd love to hear your take on that and any advice you can give us on what we should be looking out for ourselves.
Absolutely. So, as far as our menstrual cycles go, it's starting to be called the fifth vital sign. So you can learn so much about your overall health by just starting to track and pay attention to maybe some symptoms you're having throughout the month, depending on what your phase you're in. So with all of that, it also depends, kind of what age group you fall into too. But starting from young adulthood, I think every woman should start tracking their cycle. It not necessarily for family planning, but also to kind of, it'll give you answers as to why you're feeling the way you are today or this week.
Okay.
The best way to do that, in my opinion, is the basal body temperature method. So every morning when you wake up, you take a thermometer. It can just be a regular thermometer, and you take your temperature and you record that down. There's handy apps that you can get, Thermometer, Flow, that you can log it in there too, or you can just write it down. And so the reason taking your temperature is important is that first, so day one of your cycle is when you start your period. We'll call that day one. And that usually lasts anywhere from 3 to 7 days. And your temperature for the first 2 weeks of your cycle is going to stay kind of pretty consistent, or it should. And then you might wake up one morning and you realize that it's a little bit higher, and it continues at that higher temperature for the next 2 or so weeks. Once your temperature spikes like that, it's telling you you're entering into a different phase. So you just passed ovulation. Now you're in your progesterone heavy phase. And the reason, and it might take a couple months to keep track of all that and to finally figure out, like, okay, you know, my period has been lasting for about 4 days, and then I have a consistent temperature for the next 10 days. So that's when you're in your estrogen dominant phase. And then after that 10 days, the spike happens. So that tells you when you're ovulating. You ovulate right before that spike. And ovulation can be 3 to 5 days. And then after that spike, you're in your progesterone phase. So the reason that matters is that depending on which hormone is dominant, that your metabolism and your physiology is going to change. So the first, and your women's cycles can range anywhere from like 27 to 35 days. So we'll just go kind of on a 28-day 4-week one,
right?
Just to keep things simple. But so when you're in your estrogen dominant phase, the first 2-ish weeks, your body is going to naturally have higher energy. You're going to be able to burn carbs and tap in your glucose stores a lot quicker. Okay. This is also a time where if you have big projects at work, you want to plan those to do, you're just going to be mentally in a more alert state. You shouldn't have as much brain fog. And then once ovulation hits, your estrogen is going to spike and then drop, and progesterone is going to peak for the rest of the time. And when progesterone is higher, your body's going to naturally just kind of slow down a little bit. So is your metabolism. It might feel, if you are working out, it might feel harder to get those workouts started because with the progesterone being high, your body doesn't tap into those glucose stores as quickly. So you can work with that also on your diet. You can eat more carbs in the first half of the month and maybe more fats in the second half. With all of that information, it's a lot to just start keeping track of all of that. Yes. So you want to try and keep, if you want to address dietary things, it kind of simple, in my opinion. If things get overcomplicated, that's an extra stressor on your body, you know? Right. So my biggest thing for women, no matter what phase you're in, but especially perimenopause and menopausal, is make sure you're eating enough protein. I think that's the biggest thing that women struggle with. Yeah. More often than not, I would say 90% of the time, you probably should be eating a little more than you are. And it's hard to know how much you're eating until maybe you have to track it, but you don't want to have to do that long term. It's kind of tedious, but you know, aim for, honestly, about like 100 grams at least a day, which is kind of a lot compared to how much you might already be eating. And then on the flip coin of that, I see a lot of women, young adults and menopausal, I don't think they're eating enough.
Calorie wise, like getting enough intake of food.
Absolutely. And that's tough. I mean, a lot of women usually are trying to like lose weight, or they have this goal that they're trying to get to, or they started this new exercise program, which is great. Keep doing that. But if you're restricting your body of calories, that is going to put a lot of stress on your body. And if you're already imbalanced with your hormones, it's just going to be a slow cascade of bad. You're going to
Yeah.
get brain fog, mood swings, all that. It's just not really going to help. So it's counterintuitive, but you usually want to start off eating more than that. Just to
So interesting. I can hear so many people going, they're either celebrating or they're going, oh my gosh, I can't do that. What if I
yeah.
do that? You know, it's that fear factor of then I'm going to balloon to 400 pounds if I just eat.
Yeah, and it's tough. I think ingrained in our minds as women is this like competitive nature almost, to always trying to work out, trying to lose weight, do, you know, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just overbearing. And so I think when you keep it simple, really slow down and pay attention to the signs that your body is giving you every day of the month. And your body will tell you if you take the time to listen to it, if you're kind of stuck or if you're flourishing. And so the best way to nourish your body is make sure you're getting enough recovery, sleep, eating a nourishing diet. Okay. It doesn't have to be, you know, this many carbs, this much protein and this many fats every day. Just make sure you feel full and you kind of keep your blood sugar levels level.
So talk to the audience about what some of those, because I love what you said about listen to your body. That is a huge thing for me right now. I think for years I didn't hear my body because I was just following whatever program was in front of me at the time. You know, there was always some other program I should have been doing, or, you know, so a big thing for me right now is learning to listen to my body. But I'd love to get your take on that. What does that sound like? What should people pay attention to really hone in on? Because I think that's a learned skill, you know?
Yes, absolutely. I think it is learned, and it takes sometimes a lot of bit of time.
Yeah.
But what that feels like in my opinion is you notice that there's less days where you feel super tired and sluggish.
So paying attention to the energy level.
Yes,
Okay.
paying attention to energy
Yep.
level. Sometimes, you know, your skin starts to clear up. There can be physical signs of that too. Your skin is clearing up. You feel less bloated. You're not feeling starved by the end of the day. You don't feel like you have to eat so much right before you go to bed.
Right.
Very small signs. You're sleeping a little bit better, and things like that. So it's very subtle, I think, signs that we take for granted until we don't notice that they're not there anymore.
So to flip that around, Jaci, if somebody is super tired all the time, they, you know, even in menopause, you know, I hear people talk about that menopausal acne, you know, it's usually a sign that something is off in the body. It's not, you know, you don't need a different cream. You don't need a different, you know, oftentimes it's something internally that's triggering that. And then what you said about, you know, that nighttime, I'm just so starving. I hardly ever eat after I eat dinner, but some people do have, that's like the witching hour for them and they're fiending for food. So if that's happening, what do you recommend they look at to change up or to play around with? What would you recommend somebody do there?
So two things. So a lot of the like intermittent fasting and keto diets like that, I think that's when you'll tend to get very hungry at the end of the night. Intermittent fasting is okay until it gets out of hand. If you're going all day without eating until like 2 p.m., it's good maybe short term, but long term for women, it's just when we are depleted of energy from our food, we just have a constant cortisol release. So I would start eating more throughout the day, and you'll notice you don't get as hungry at night. So I find that to be an issue with people who are trying to fast too long throughout the day.
Okay.
If you're sleeping, you know, 8 hours or so, 7 to 8 hours, and maybe you eat breakfast a couple hours after you wake up, that's a 12 about a 12-hour window
Mhm.
ish, and that's enough time for your body to fast. So I would start eating more frequently throughout the day, but you want your meals and snacks to have a source of carb, a source of protein, and a source of fat.
Yeah.
That's going to help your blood sugar levels stay consistent throughout the day.
And you've mentioned blood sugar a couple times. So if the blood sugar is off, what are some of those things that they can listen to in the body to kind of trigger, I need to pay attention to more balance?
The biggest thing is you'll feel like you might in the mornings, right when you wake up, you get your coffee, maybe you have breakfast, and you feel like you have enough energy, but by lunchtime you're like flatlining.
Yeah.
That's a big indicator that something is off. It could be other things, but check the blood sugar. When the blood sugar starts to get more regulated, your cortisol response isn't as drained or continuing to be released. And our cortisol is like our stress hormone. So anytime we put a stress on our body, we'll have that cortisol response. Stress doesn't have to be.
I was going to ask you to explain that because I know what it means. And,
No,
you know, I
thank you.
just want to make sure other people, so it's a constant state of fight or flight. Your body is
Yes.
constantly in go mode, and there's no relaxing internally when you're constantly producing new cortisol.
Absolutely. And it can be from like physical trauma, maybe you're overtraining, can be from not eating enough and your body's doesn't have any energy. The cortisol and stress response can be from things that you don't always feel. I think sometimes that goes overlooked. But and I would recommend if someone is really wanting to get down to the nitty gritty and do testing and figure out where they should start, what specific supplements they should be maybe taking to support themselves, I would work with a professional. Functional nutritional therapy practitioner, an FNTP, is someone I would reach out to. They do a lot of testing and they use those tests to figure out what nutrients your body's depleted of, that and how you can supplement and make some lifestyle changes to work with that. And I think in the past couple of years, you are able to find an FNTP that will definitely work virtually with you. Yeah. I don't know how many there are in the Peoria area, but I know there are some great ones like up in southern Wisconsin. So I think it's really handy to reach out to them. And also, there is a clinic in Peoria Heights here called Options Center for Health. Helen Cox works there, and she also does hair analysis testing. Okay. And with those results, she can tell you any micronutrient imbalances you have. So minerals in your body. Right. I think that sometimes goes overlooked because everyone's concentrated on fats, proteins, and carbs. Well, what are the micronutrients doing? And when you have mineral imbalances, the systems in your body aren't going to work either. So she would be another good resource if someone is looking to really dive in and do some testing and figure out how to balance things out. Because it is all about balance.
And there's so much to be said. I work with a lot of people who, again, have been working through a lot of physical ailments, physical issues, and, the kinds of things, hormone levels. And, they might know their levels, but it's a question of how do we, address the, getting them balanced. And, you mentioned traumas in the body, and that's a big part of what I work on with people is making sure that those traumas in the body are not affecting the physical, because, there is so much to be said for, we've lived, even if you're in your 20s or 30s, I'm in my 50s, that's a long life lived. That's a lot that's happened. And, a lot of times what the body perceives as trauma can affect so much of what you're speaking about right now. Absolutely. And, I want to make sure that people go into situations, like you said, with, if they're having problems and they're running these tests, that they give their body the best chance. And that's what you do as well as the chiropractor is, you want to give your body the best chance to heal itself, to be in the optimum, shape, the optimum, mindset. You say mind, body,
Yes.
spirit,
Hmm.
because our bodies are fascinating and our body really does want the best for us. But sometimes life experiences, unprocessed emotions, trapped, what you do in releasing the misalignments in the body can just, once those are in sync, it's really amazing what the body can do. And
Yes.
I love that you work with that. So tell us a little bit. I just want to, we've talked about a lot about positive things we can do for our body. And we've said mind, body, spirit a couple times. There is negativity in the world. We feel it, we see it daily. Even if you try to avoid it, something can slip in. So, how do you, Dr. Jaci, stay positive amidst some negativity in the world? I'd love to hear.
Yes. So good question. I've realized after kind of slowing down, and I'm a big routine person. So I have found that my morning routine
Mhm.
is a game changer for me. And for me, that looks like I'll usually wake up around 6:15 or something, and I make that nice cup of coffee and I spend like 10 minutes reading,
Mhm.
praying, whatever, just kind of
You,
relaxing
yeah,
after I wake up, relaxing a little bit before the day starts. And that really helps me. And trying to limit, especially in that first hour of waking up, getting on my social media, I
yeah.
think lately has really helped. And then another thing is really looking at what are some toxins in your life that maybe you can get rid of. So in chiropractic, we say the causes of misalignments in the spines or subluxations are thoughts, traumas, and toxins. So your body will manifest your thoughts as physical pain. If you get physical trauma, that is going to affect your body. And then toxins. So there are a lot of toxins in our hair products, in our skin products, in our cookware, in the scents, in just our air in general.
Mhm.
So you can't really get away from that, but you can mitigate how
Yeah.
that does affect you. So I've tried to kind of get to more natural hair care and skin care, and I think that has helped a ton.
That's
Um,
awesome.
so those are the two biggest things. And then I always try to get time outside. Honestly,
Mhm.
like that's huge for me.
Yeah.
I notice a difference on days where I might not have time to just, whether that's walking, working out outside, just sitting with my dog outside.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference. So
Yeah. We're coming up on a time it's going to be a
I
little bit more
know.
challenging. However, you
Yes.
just need to bundle up a little bit more.
Yes. It is tough. It's tough in the winter, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I totally agree with that morning importance of just some quiet time in the morning. And I recognize when I let a couple mornings go, whether it's,
Yes. Me too.
my kids need me unexpectedly or my dogs need me unexpectedly. And it's just like I'm in go mode immediately
Yeah.
because I don't, and the day is not the same. It is not the same. So, I encourage our listeners, regardless of what that looks like for you,
Mhm.
don't just wake up and grab your phone or go to your laptop or just get right to the day. Find some internal, just quiet thing that you can sit with for a little while and find a routine. Journaling. Jaci talked about reading and prayer. Some people love meditation or mindfulness work. Just anything, or maybe mix it up. One day it's something, one day it's something else, till you find what really resonates with you. But Dr. Jaci, thank you so much for your time today.
Of
Very
course.
enlightening, some
Thank
great
you for
tips for
having
our
me
audience.
on.
And you out there in our audience, I just want to encourage you, just like Dr. Jaci and I, we had a passion and we're making it happen. If there's some nudge inside you that's saying I should do something, just go do it. Find a way. I encourage you to step out there. Don't listen to that little imposter voice, like Jaci said, that's going to tell you all the reasons you shouldn't do it. Just ignore that and keep focused and find somebody to help you out. Until next time, shine on.